Welcome, Fever fans, to the Good, the Bad, and Delirious. I'm your host, Paddlecast. Today, we're going to review the game between the Fever and the Mercury in Indiana. Let me tell you, this game was a banger with high highs and low lows, which is what we've become accustomed to here in Feverland. First off, we only give our opponents props here on the GBD, but they might show up in the Delirious section. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Now, the Mercury are an extremely talented squad that has a mix of amazing role players, legendary vets, and MVP candidates like Kalia Copper. It's hard to beat a team twice, let alone 3 times. However, just like our second meeting, the Mercury made ground, being down 28 points and even came back to lead in the third. First and foremost, we have to talk about Kalia Gold, as she was golden in this game, literally doing everything to give the Mercury a fighting chance. She led the team in points with 32 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. She didn't have the best field goal percentage from the floor, but she was relentless in driving to the basket over and over, drawing fouls, and going 18 of 19 from the free throw line. For those interested, the most free throws in a single game was Tina Charles with 24. Stellar performance from Ka, and I'm glad we don't have to see her for the rest of the regular season. BG always impresses me on the floor and is arguably the greatest security blanket in the game. The Mercury go down early, and Nate Tibbetts calls a timeout, and what do they run out of the break? They swing it around to the outside, feed it into BG, and then even with the double team, it's just free points. I was shocked when Cheryl Reeves in the Olympics didn't rely on this, and it's unfortunate for the Mercury we don't see more of it. Cloud didn't have an assist-heavy game tonight, but she dropped 19, including 5 for 8 from the 3, which for those who don't want to do the math is 62.5%. She also had 3 steals and played absolutely phenomenal. A small nod to Makia Herbert Harrigan, who got 10 quality minutes on the floor, shooting 2 of 3 from beyond the arc, 2 rebounds and a steal. She was the only Mercury player with positive minutes on the floor tonight. So she definitely spelled in a little bit of their comeback. So just like a shout out nod, someone that caught my eye, definitely had some good minutes. Last but not least, I have to give a shout out to DT. I see a lot of talk here, especially right now, everyone clickbaiting the reality is coming line, but let's be honest. She talked good about Clark before the line. She's talked good about Clark after the line. She stopped her team from wiling out on Clark in game. She's hugging her. She's high-fiving Christy's sides after getting a technical. She is a legend in the game and a great vet, and she should be recognized for the sum of her actions on and off the court instead of the one comment. And, based on how she has acted towards Clark and the Fever and team, and she's just been kind of one of those savvy vets, even with that foul in this game, that deserves respect, and we should give it to her. Now we get to the good stuff. See what I did there? This is where we talk about all the things that went right for the Fever in this game. So shout out to the fans of Gamebridge Field. Y'all were loud, and I'd be surprised if most of you still had a voice by the end of that game. You were going crazy. Tyrese Halliburton was in the building losing his mind. Overall, a great performance. The Fever as a team, points in the paint, 34-10, 17-8 on second chance points, which is something that the Fever are not usually accustomed to. And if there was ever a team I didn't want to face as the Mercury team on a back-to-back with 3 Olympians, it would be the Indiana Fever. And especially none other than Caitlin Clark. She is her. Her legs are back. Her shot is back. And she led the team with 29 points, 5 rebounds, and 10 assists on 71% true shooting. And oh my God, some of those assists were magical. Caitlin as a playmaker and floor general is unmatched in the WNBA. One of my favorite moments of the game was DT doing this amazing athletic drive, sinks the basket, and immediately Caitlin has the ball and she's racing down to the other end of the court, zipping past DT for an and one. There was literally a sequence in this game that went like this. Clark gets a 3. Clark gets the ball, drives down, and 1. Clark, drive and assist. Clark, and 1. And gets a technical. And gets their free throw. This is all in a 4-minute span, back to back to back to back. Clark just racking up 10 points like it was nothing. But this is why the Mercury have a terrible matchup against the Fever. And it all starts with the pace that Caitlin Clark offense puts on you, and even her teammates are getting better at unlocking big plays. Clark was on fire, but you want to know who looked even more like Steph Curry tonight? Kelsey Mitchel. 25 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and a block, which she's been racking up a few of those lately, which is not normally her bag. Shooting 46.2% from beyond the arc, she hit massive threes down the stretch when the offense was sputtering and the Mercury were crawling back. When the game needed to be put away, not only was Mitchel putting down threes, but she was making tough physical plays under the basket, hitting the floor, doing whatever it took to get the win. I haven't seen Kelsey Mitchell with this kind of fire in a while, even going at Natasha Cloud at one point. And my oh my, do I want more of this Kelsey Mitchell? Because her and Clark together, if this is what we see the rest of the way, I think there isn't a single team, even the Liberty, that will want to see the Fever come playoffs. AB was excellent as always, hauling in 4 offensive rebounds, picking up 4 assists, 1 steal, 14 points on the night. She was arguably our best defender tonight, and any minutes she had on the floor, it was felt. She even had a beautiful tip back in early in the game off of a missed 3, I believe, and like just, doing all the work that you need from AB. Definitely, like, when she's not on the floor, it's felt. Melissa Smith, I like that she had a lot of energy tonight, was going strong to the hole, picking up some legendary and ones, and arguably some of the points, maybe too much energy. We might get into that a little bit later. And she even had some and ones that should have been and ones that weren't called, but she's just strong. She was flexing tonight. Other big shout outs, Lexi Hall, you may have missed a wide open layup assist from Clark, but you went 2 for 3 from beyond the arc, had a block, and was one of the best defenders on the court tonight. I will pretty much always applaud hustle players, especially when they perform like this. So Lexi Hall, great. You're still in the Mermaid Club tonight. Kalis had a dagger 3 at the end of the third, which really kind of re-solidified that gap as, the Mercury had come back late in the third and we're actually up by 1 point somehow. We were up by 28. So that was definitely helped. And she had 2 steals of the night. So definitely showed up. And Erica Wheeler deserves some flowers, not all the flowers, but some flowers. She had some quality minutes early in the game when Clark was pulled. And what I thought was going to be a disaster rotation, it didn't hurt the Fever as much as I thought it would. And overall, like she had a nice 3. Later in the game, there was some troubles that are kind of expected, but at least like in those first few minutes, they were good minutes. Overall, it was a stellar offensive night from majority of the Fever. But now we get to talk about the bad. Listen, if your team is up 28 points over halfway through the second quarter and you somehow have given up your lead halfway through the third, something is really wrong. Damiris Dantas, as good as she has been on offense for us this season, she has brilliant soft touch, reminds me of BG sometimes with her shot. She was not great and even seems like she was a part of some miscues tonight, which I will touch on in a bit. Just when I watch her minutes on the court, defensively, she gives up way too much ground to bigs, or she's just completely out of position. When I talk about miscues, there was a play early in the game where Erica Wheeler literally comes up and takes the ball from Caitlin Clark. And in my head, I'm like, okay, this has to be intentional. They're going to run a play for CC. And sure enough, CC runs, it cuts down the baseline, comes around, swings around. She's open for the 3 ball, and the ball stops the swing at Dantas, doesn't get around to Caitlin Clark, who's open at this point, and she just hucks up a 3 and misses. And now I'm not going to be against players taking wide open 3s when it's just it is the shot. But if we're going to run a play for a player and they are wide open, let's follow through. Let's just follow through with that. And really this is a game of percentages. It's not that like, hey, you're just open and we want you to take a shot because you're open, but it's like, if you are the player that we're running the play for, or you are the sharpshooter, then take the shot. If you're open, just do it. Caitlin was honestly even a little bit guilty on the pass off to, Katie Lou Samuelson at the end of the third. So she doesn't fully get away from that criticism either. But at least in that case, we can forgive because Katie Lou Samuelson drained that 3. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of rotations where we have Erica Wheeler, Dantas, Melissa Smith on the floor at the same time. And I just don't think we can afford that. It's tough with Temi being hurt, but we have to find a rotation where our offense can still run and we can not bleed points away. If the Fever lost this game, it would have been unforgivable. But fortunately, we don't have to get into that, into the what could have been. Instead, we can now enter into the Delirious. The Delirious section is for the ugly things, the questions I still have, the just weird things. So the first thing is not a new thing, and I'm not the only one to call it out, but man, Cece is more of an emotional player than I gave her credit for. She plays with such a fire majority of the time that you're like, she's locked in, like she's the general Mamba mentality, like unflappable, she's cold, she's ice cold, you know, all this kind of stuff. But there's just times where she just throws like an AAU temper tantrum, is for lack of better thing, something I would expect from a younger player that, you know, isn't fully in control. And I love that she plays the passion of the game, but like, you know, it might be because she's tired, it might be because she makes a bad play, it might be because there's a bad call, and it just pains me because it's not that she's showing the emotion, but it clearly affects her play. Like, she started this game hot, and then when things got frustrating, she started making more mistakes, getting some really bad turnovers, getting the ball stolen, started to take less shots. And, you know, in the fourth quarter, she locked back in. But man, if her sports psychologist could hone in on that and get her uplifting her team in frustrating moments instead of having such a negative effect on her path, the GOAT status would be a lot easier. You know, that road would be a lot better paved for her. And that's just what I kind of hope is just like in those moments, if she can start to slowly turn that around over her career. This isn't a thing that you're going to be able to turn around right away. It's like she's in her way. Her dad has had a billion shots while he's sitting in the stands, you know, kind of like waiting to hear, you know, or it's just like kind of like judging and being like, oh my gosh, just like be like even he has been like, shut up, like stop talking about that, focus on the game, like get it going. So yeah, I just hope she figures that out. It's games like these though where like we're having the defensive struggles during what I would call uncomfy rotations, and I just think back to Celeste Taylor, who has now been signed by the Suns. So now two teams have made plays to pick her up. You know, first it was the 7-day roster for the Mercury, or 7-day contract for the Mercury. Now the Suns have picked her up. And I just kind of think what could have been, because we have three players who aren't even seeing the floor. One I desperately wish was back in Temi, but you know, and she's the fourth player not seeing the floor. But you know, between Saxton, Berger, and Wallace, it's like none of those people are good enough defensively to bring onto the court into what we currently have. And so it's like, why did we give up Celeste Taylor? Like you know, it's kind of want to be one of those plays where it's like what she could have developed into, what she could have done to spell for the team to, again, really, it's like, yes, we need to like give people breaks. You know, if we're talking about, you know, Caitlin getting, frustrated when she's tired and that it gets to that point in the game, you need to spell her. And so right now we're doing with Erica Wheeler, but usually that tends to not work out super great, right? Or you know, Kelsey Mitchel is not a floor general, so you know, maybe I like to see Berger in there, but apparently Berger's not, you know, I can't in this point defensively minded or whatever reason she's not seeing the court. And you literally have a defensive player that can pass, does get assists when she gets minutes, like. I mean, really, that's what you just have to stem the bleeding. And for us to kind of like forego that and drop that, you know, it kind of might be one of the big question marks of like this season in kind of decision making there. The Fever offense has been great. We just need to stop the bleeding when we rotate, you know, sit CC and sit AB. You know, I've seen lots of people talk about that like they should never be both sitting at the same time. But man, it's definitely felt when they're off the floor, either offensively or defensively. And the last thing I want to talk about is there's been a little bit of a trend going, but what is going on with Kalia Cobber? In the Olympics, she threw a basketball against another player in frustration. Against the Sky before the Fever game, she kicked a ball into her ref. And in this game, you know, it was a pedestrian foul from Caitlin Clark, and she just kind of like she wanted to like fight her. She like, you know, she had to be held back. Erica Wheeler's going in, Natasha Cloud stepping in front of her. And, you know, let's be honest, like the Mercury team just do be a Wilden team, you know, like DT, Cloud, and BG all got technicals in this game, which is like crazy to think about. Like Clouds was a little like, like DT, I don't know what she said. It was prolific and enough to high five Chrissy Sides. I don't know. But and BG's like, she was just getting get off my porch angry. And, you know, overall for me, I'm not completely worried about her because it's not affecting her performance on the court necessarily. Like maybe in those moments or like briefly in those moments, she's still performing. So I'm not completely concerned about it yet, but there is a pattern forming. And if there's a pattern forming and I just don't want these unnecessary outbursts to be a thing that like stifles a great talent like Kalia Copper. I mean, and have it go to waste. I mean, there's other players right now that, I think Kennedy Carter is a perfect example of like, I love Kennedy Carter as a player. Kennedy Carter is an amazing player, but like sometimes it's like, it's a battle up here instead of like, on the court. And, I just don't want to see that become Kalia Copper's thing. I don't think she's there yet, but there's just like a pattern of a few things where it's like, if you just have the wrong outburst, it will become a problem. And that will wrap the first episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Delirious. The Fever take on the Seattle Storm next, and we will be back for another episode following the game August 18th. If you liked what you saw, please give a like and a subscribe to catch the next episode. If you have something to add, a question, feedback, please leave a comment down below. I really appreciate it. I want to give a big shout out to the Indiana Fever subreddit who encouraged me to dip my toe into this kind of content. Also, big shout out to the other channels on YouTube that I've been enjoying this season. Convos with Carter, Mick Talks Hoops, Quita Loves Sports. I've really enjoyed their content. Go give them a watch, a listen, a like, a subscribe. They deserve it. They're doing awesome stuff. And with that, see you next episode, Fever fans.